Everybody, welcome to Daily Distinction. It is Thursday. What has happened this week? Man, I don't know about you. This week has flown by. Got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of work to do, a lot of things happening. So thank you for being here. Thanks for joining me and ready for a good day on Daily Distinction. Hey, you got a problem with that? We're going to be talking about problems today and problem solving and some of the things you might want to think about in terms of how to deal with and how to solve and how to battle the problems that all of us have. Hey, Weldon, great to see you. Good afternoon. Glad you are here today. Thank you for being a part of this. Also, want to remind you that the Distinction Summit, Stand Out, Earn More. You see the logo behind me. The Distinction Summit is coming up, and gee whiz, today is a month and we're 6 weeks away. I guess it is something like that. So now is the time to join us. It's distinctionsummit.com where you can learn more about it and register. After Labor Day, we're going to be announcing some of the guest speakers that we're going to be having and talking more about what the program is. But until then, we've got $100 off your registration until midnight Pacific time on Labor Day. So don't wait. Sign up now. Take advantage of the discount at distinctionsummit.com. We are going to have an extraordinary event. I can promise you that. Charles, great to see you from beautiful San Jose. Glad you are here. Scott, as always, happy Thursday to you. And Weldon, thank you for sharing. That our pal Ken Walls always says that sharing is caring. So if you care, we appreciate that you share. Thank you for taking time to do that. So thanks again for Distinction Summit and for taking advantage of that. Several of you signed up and look forward to having more signing up along the way. Today's topic is problem solving, and we want to tackle the problems that you are experiencing. Look, the pandemic has certainly created an entire set of problems, hasn't it? I mean, it's just extraordinary what we're dealing with and extraordinary how life has changed. My buddy Roger Crawford, who is a incredible speaker. Maybe if you're a tennis player, you've seen his commentary on the tennis channel. Roger posted a picture today that he's flying to Orlando, or Roger lives in Sacramento. He's flying to Orlando to give a speech. And I was like, wow, because the last time I was on a plane is March. And now you're talking to somebody that 1 year qualified to be executive platinum on American Airlines, global services on United, and diamond on Delta in the same year. And I haven't been on a plane since March. So it certainly created a problem here. Michael Hunt, so good to see you, my friend. Thank you for checking in. I appreciate that. Haven't seen you for too long. I appreciate you being here. So we're going to talk about problems. And, what we're looking for is a way that we can attack our problems regardless of what they might be. And part of the reason I'm saying that is, just as we could not predict the pandemic, who knows where the next problems are coming from? Who knows where the next set of problems are going to be originating? So if we have a format, if we have an approach to it, if we have a philosophy about it, then we're better able to attack the problems that we have. And by the way, these aren't just business problems. Might be a problem in your personal life, might be a problem with finances, might be a problem with whatever. We're going to be talking about what does it take to get to work on your problems and solve your problems. Hey, Sonia, so great to see you as always. Your favorite fifth day of the week. Always love that. Thank you for that. So problems is the name of the game. We're going to be talking about it. And you've heard me say this before. This is nothing new. But the first step to solving a problem begins with identifying the problem. I think a challenge for a lot of problems that we face, whether we're talking about problems in our country, whether we're talking about problems in our personal lives, problems in our business, is that we might identify a symptom, but we don't go deeply enough to really get at the problem. We don't get at it enough. I'll give you an example, and this borders on the political. I was really thinking about this last night. If we look at the problems that so many of us have with the media, I think we can talk about that being a problem with the media as of today, But if we keep drilling into it and identifying it more deeply, part of the problem with the media stems from a couple of things. I think it stems from uh, the decision that was made many years ago by the FCC to deregulate. Back when I first started working in media, in television at any rate, I worked at WHAS Television in Louisville, which was owned by the Bingham family. And there's been a lot written about and talked about the Bingham family over the years, but Barry Bingham Sr. was someone who felt that, owning a media outlet was a public trust. And the news department was expected to be successful compared to the competition, but wasn't really expected to be the profit generator that is the case today. When the FCC deregulated, and I know this is kind of getting deep in the weeds, but you gave up a lot of the local ownership into more group ownership. For example, a group out of Providence, Rhode Island bought WHAS television. And because they had invested so much money, naturally, they wanted everything about the station to be profit-centered, including the news department. And so that was part of what changed the media. Also, if you think back long enough, Watergate changed the media as well, because for the first time, reporters, Woodward and Bernstein, became stars, and multi-millions of dollars headed their way in book deals and in speaking and on and on and on. So for a reporter to become a star, and I don't think necessarily that they pursued it, but I know that later, you've got other reporters that the way that they make more money is to be a bigger star, and the way they become a bigger star is to be more controversial rather than just simply going about doing what journalists were supposed to do and report the facts, not opinion. So they could become stars. Stations made more profit because they weren't subject to local ownership. You put that together and you get the media situation we got today. So you can't fix the immediate symptom without looking at what really created the problem. I'm using that as an example of what happens so many times. We think about symptoms, but we don't think about problems. And so the first step to solving the problem that you have is really focusing on identifying it. Yeah, bam. Maybe that's what the airlines need to do, right? Is they need to get guys like me and gals like you back on the planes. Well, we all have problems. You are exactly right. So the problems that we often have stems with problems within yourself, Michael. That you are so on target with that. That is exactly right. So and sometimes that's why we have to really identify the problem, because sometimes we are the problem in the situation. And that's why the first step to identifying the problem is asking the big questions first. I was on a coaching call earlier today, and I'm doing some individual coaching and consulting and working with small businesses and entrepreneurs on how to create distinction and what they need to do. And so we had a 90-minute coaching call this morning with a client. And part of what the client said was, Scott, give us your perspective at 30,000 feet. And it seems to me that part of what a coach does there, part of what a consultant does there, is to get you to think of the big questions. We get so busy doing what we do, we very seldom think about what we do from this top high-end perspective. So one of the most important things that you can be doing is asking yourself the big questions first, right? I mean, big questions like, where do I want to be in 5 years? Or if I don't solve this problem, where will this take us in 5 years? If I could solve this correctly, where would it be in 5 years? Now, look, no one could have set 4 years ago and thought about the pandemic happening later. I don't think people do that. But I think we do need to think about what are some of the big questions we need to be asking ourselves. By the way, this is an area where coaching or consulting or attending a summit or those kinds of things can spur the essential kind of thought necessary to be asking yourself these big questions. Let me give you a couple examples. My friend Mike Rayburn talks about this quite a bit. What if? Asking yourself the what if questions. What if we do this? And play that scenario out. What if we did something else? Or how might we improve our customer service? How might we improve where we live? How might we? So, what if or how might we are essential questions to getting at solving your problems. It gets you thinking big instead of small. It gets you thinking about the big picture rather than see, we can always make it smaller. We can always narrow the funnel. Very seldom do we start small and then enlarge it. What we need to do is start at the top of the funnel and work our way to something more precise. Here's the next thing. As you're brainstorming, whether with other people or with yourself, make certain you record everything. Get everything down. Write it down. Write it down. Because as we write this down, we can go back and look at it and examine it. Hey, I'm working on that today. All right. So it's what we do. We write it down. And this will make sense too with something I'm going to talk about in just a couple minutes. Okay, next, discuss and select the best ideas. And notice that's plural. It's ideas, not the best idea. The reason is what we've talked about before, in that most people stop at the end of the first right answer. 2 + 2 = 4, stop. I've solved that problem. Well, that's not the way it works in real life. And a lot of times, the second or third or fifth or 10th answer that we come up with is really the best solution to our problem. So it starts by asking the big questions, like what if or how can we, how might we? It's writing everything down. It's recording all the ideas and thoughts that you get from that. It's discussing and narrowing it down and selecting it. And then, yes, and you're so right, Bruce. If we don't write it down, it never happened. We got to get it written down, whether we speak into it, dictate it, record it, or whether it's that we jot it down, something that we have to do. You're exactly right. If it's not recorded, then it never happened. And then something Dr. Edward de Bono came up with is, he says, as you review these ideas, take a look at an idea. So you've got the idea, right? Think of a specific idea about how you're going to solve your problem. And then as you look at that idea, think of yourself going through 6 different hats. I tell you, that's what he calls it. He calls it the 6 hats of problem solving. Okay, so hat number 1 is, what are the facts? And we jot those down. We think about those. What are the facts? Next hat we put on is, how does this make us feel? How do we feel about taking this action? Third hat is control. How much of this do we control? Can we control? Next is creativity. And the final 2, I think, are really interesting. It's like you put on your positive hat. I'm so positive about this. Now, what would I do? Because I'm positive that this, and then you put on the negative hat. Why won't this idea work? What about this idea won't solve my problem? So when you go through those 6 hats, according to Dr. de Bono, what are the facts about this approach? How does this approach make me feel about solving my problem? How much control will I have over my problem if I take this approach? What are some creative ways that I can apply this solution to my problem? What if everything worked out right with this idea? How would that solve my problem? What if this idea is totally wrong? What happens to my problem? So we almost think of ourselves putting on a hat. That was his approach to it. You think about yourself putting on a hat, and as you have that hat on, matter of fact, he even, if you get into his work, he even has, you get 6 different colors of hats, right? And the black one is the negative hat. So you put on that black hat and you think about negative, and you put on the white hat and it's positive, right? And that's why he called it the hat. It got you in that thinking mode, easier to wear a specific color of hat and tie that color in with the approach. But it's a very, very interesting way to think about how you solve your problems, is going through facts, feelings, control, creativity, positive, and negative. Okay, here's another approach. You take a look at the problem, and then you have the 5 whys. So let's say I'm having financial difficulty. I need to save more money. Why? Well, saving more money is going to mean I'm not spending as frivolously. Why? Well, because if I pay more, with each why, you ask yourself why 5 different times. Part of what this method is trying to do is, now that you've thought at 30,000 feet, it's trying to bring you down to the very specific reason that this approach would solve your problem. One thing I've talked for a long time about in terms of the customer experience and problems that you might be having with customer service or the customer experience is to ask the question, and then what? And then what? So the customer comes in your store, and then what? I mean, like, who walks up to them and greets them, or who approaches them? Does anyone approach them? And then what? They walk in the store, and then what? Well, we want someone to walk up to them, welcome to the store. Well, and then what? What do they say? What do they? Well, they will say, thank you for coming into our store. We're really pleased to have you here today. Well, and then what? Do they follow them around, or do they ask them if they need help? The more we drill down and the more we become precise, the more we become specific, the greater the likelihood that we solve our problem. See, this ties into something we've talked about before, is that in many times our worries are not our problems. Worries are the things we think about, we contemplate, and the more we worry about them, the bigger that they get, and it's negative goal setting. It's thinking about out here, oh my gosh, and we build this whole problems are something need to be something that's happening to us now, right? I'm not selling enough. I'm not saving enough. I'm not marketing enough. Those kinds of things tend to be a lot more specific and a lot more precise. Hey, Jerry, there you go. You are great at helping people solve their problems. Yes, 30,000 feet is a great view to see the problem. We've talked about that one too, haven't we? But that's the thing. Good grief. How many times have we heard this, that you can't see the forest for the trees? And that's what seeing it at 30,000 feet is all about. It's being able to have a better perspective, which is why many times we need outside coaches and consultants, because they have this ability to step back and to see the very things in front of us that we can't. And that's why even coaches have coaches. That's why even, we've talked about this 100 times. That's why even Michael Jordan had a coach. Yeah, I need to get in touch with our inner 3-year-old. That's a great way to put it, Michael. Why? Kids ask why constantly. We don't ask ourselves that question nearly enough. Why? What's the why to it? Okay? Then here's the final one I want to suggest to you. When you come up with what you think is the best answer, you've gone through this whole process, right? You've gone through the process of the hats and the whys and the 30,000 feet, and you have what you think is the best answer, the right answer. Then what I want to suggest that you do is to put it on the shelf. Put it away for a day or two. Don't jump in and try to immediately put it into action. Put it up for a day or two. And then you take it off the shelf with imagination, to expand your thinking, to expand your imagination. It gets back, and this is a weird analogy, but it gets back to this in a way. I always like getting a video of my speech, because that's how I get better, right? Is to take a look at the video. They do that in sports. If you want to get your golf swing better, one of the best ways to do it is to watch it on video, because it doesn't look like on video what you say. But one of the things I've noticed, at least for myself, and when I coach speakers, it's one of the things I suggest too, is that you got to put it on the shelf for a few days. If I watch a video of my speech right after the speech, what I hear and what I think is what I meant to say and how I meant to say it, instead of what I actually said. Does that make sense? I'm still so connected to it. I'm still so engaged with it that I'm dealing with what I meant to say and how I meant to say it. And I'm looking at it from a different lens, as opposed to if I get a little distance from it and then consider it. And I'm suggesting the same is true about how you solve a problem. you might be so intense and so focused on it that after you go through this process, man, you're ready to get to work and solve the problem. When instead, what we need for just a bit is to separate from it and to disconnect from it for just a little bit. Because it might give us a new and better idea. It might give us a different perspective. Put it on the shelf for just a day or two. And then take it off the shelf and do it with some more imagination. Yeah. You did have that conversation today, didn't you, Jerry? Who was that with, right? So those are the steps I want to recommend to you in terms of problem solving. It begins with identifying it, and you identify it by asking the big questions first, those 30,000 feet questions. What if we did this? How might we do that? And record all of your thoughts and all of the answers and everything you come up with. And then, whether with yourself or with others, you brainstorm. What are the best ideas? And it's always plural. It's always more than one. And then review that with what Dr. Edward de Bono said are the 6 hats. What are the facts about this solution? How do I feel about this solution? What control does this give me over the problem? How can I be creative in terms of utilizing this approach? What if everything went right? What if everything went wrong? And then as we look at that, we drill even deeper. And then what happens? Or why would we do that? And why would we do that? And why would we expect that response? And why would they respond in that manner? Then after we go so thoroughly through that, put it on the shelf for a little bit. Hang on to it for a day or two, and then take it off the shelf with a renewed imagination. And Michael, you're exactly right. That is the point. Disconnect from the emotional aspects so you can get the intellectual perspective, because in so many cases, our problems are exactly that. They are emotional, not rational. We've got to have both the emotion that connects us to the problem and commits us to the resolution, as well as the intellectual that takes us methodically with what we need to do to make a difference. When we do these things, we get better at solving our problems. Doesn't mean we're not going to have problems, but it certainly means we get better at solving them. Hey, before we're out of here for the day, one last reminder, you can enroll now for Stand Out, Earn More, the Distinction Summit. All you need to do is just go to distinctionsummit.com. Time is of the essence, though, because you get $100 off either your regular registration, which the $100 off puts it at under $100 to attend, or you get $100 off the VIP registration, which is going to give you a lot of great benefits. So $100 off registration until midnight on Labor Day. All you need to do is go to distinctionsummit.com. Hope to see you at the Distinction Summit next month. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I appreciate you sharing. Appreciate you being a part of this. I look forward to it. I hope you don't have any problem. You got a problem-free day, at least until I see you tomorrow on the next Daily Distinction.